The day was September 6, 1990. It was a warm Saturday, and I was turning 30. My daughter, who was about to celebrate her 12th birthday, and I had planned a quiet gathering. Nothing elaborate, just cake and friends stopping by later. That morning, my sister and I took our children to our parents' house for our usual Saturday bagel tradition. My stepmother was there. She had married my father about 5 years prior, following the passing of my birth mother. Linda, her name was, and she always made me feel uneasy, giving off a creepy vibe. Her eyes seemed cold and calculating, as if she were constantly assessing things, perhaps tallying dollar signs. She rarely stopped talking about the house, the savings, the property my father owned. It strongly felt like she had married him primarily for financial security. Nevertheless, for my father's sake, I tried to disregard those feelings. My father wasn't present that morning. He was over at his parents' house, mowing their lawn as he did every weekend to assist them. He had phoned earlier, his tone cheerful as always. "Happy birthday, Rabio," he'd said. "See you later." I chuckled and replied, "Love you, Daddy-o." Those were our special, silly nicknames. We gathered for bagels, cream cheese, lox, the whole works. The children were playing, my daughter laughing with her cousins. It was a pleasant, ordinary scene. Roughly 45 minutes into it, the telephone in the kitchen rang. Linda answered it. I witnessed her face turn completely white, as if all the blood had drained away. She kept repeating, "A stroke, a stroke." Her voice trembled, yet something about it felt unnatural, almost practiced. She hung up and turned towards us, her eyes wide with alarm. "It's your grandfather," she stated. "Your father? He's in the hospital." My heart plummeted. Dad, in the hospital. My then husband and my brother-in-law quickly got up, hurrying to Linda's side to offer comfort. My sister and I didn't hesitate. We gathered the children, put them in my car, and drove rapidly towards my grandparents' house. During the drive, I played a foolish mental game to maintain composure. If I encountered only green lights, he was all right. If I saw children playing outside, he was fine. If a bird flew past, he was okay. Anything to convince myself the situation wasn't dire. The windows were down, allowing the warm air to flow in. It was a perfect September day, yet everything felt profoundly wrong. As we pulled up to the house, I heard a sound unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was loud, gut-wrenching wailing. It originated from inside. My grandmother, my birth grandmother, was on the porch, collapsed in sobbing so intense it echoed down the street. That sound continues to haunt me, pure sorrow and pain. We ran towards her. My daughter noticed something in the grass. Dad's glasses, smashed and bent, were there. She picked them up, confused. "Mom, these are Grandpa's," she said. But I knew she meant my dad, her grandpa. No, wait. Dad was her grandpa. No, my dad was her grandpa. My mind was reeling. My dad was the one who died. Her grandfather. Regardless, she held the glasses, and I felt sick to my stomach. My grandfather arrived back from the hospital shortly after, just shaking his head. He didn't speak at first, but his expression conveyed everything. Other family members began to arrive, uncles, aunts. That's when the truth emerged. Dad hadn't suffered a stroke. It was a massive heart attack. He collapsed right there on the lawn while mowing. Sanitation workers passing by witnessed the incident. They jumped off their truck and attempted CPR alongside my grandfather, but it was futile. He was gone before he even reached the ground. The remainder of that day blurred together. The party, naturally, didn't happen. We all just sat there, numb with shock. Linda appeared eventually, putting on a display of distress, hugging everyone. But her eyes, they darted around the room, suggesting she was already contemplating what came next. The house, the money. It sent chills down my spine, but I suppressed the feeling. Grief can elicit strange reactions. For the subsequent 15 years, I couldn't bear to hear happy birthday without reacting sharply. I forbade it. If someone accidentally said it, I'd give them a severe talking to. Don't ever say that to me. Even now, 36 years later, I don't truly celebrate my birthday. September 6th is merely a day I endure. However, I do hold sanitation workers in immense respect. They are heroes in my eyes. A few months after my father's passing, matters took a stranger turn. I was at the house, assisting with sorting through his belongings. Linda had been living there alone and was pressing to sell everything rapidly. "We need to move on," she'd insist, but her tone was eager, not sorrowful. One day, while cleaning out the kitchen cabinets deep in the back, a spot that rarely saw attention, I discovered a bottle of syrup concealed behind some old cans. It was unlabeled, housed in a plain glass bottle containing a thick, dark liquid. Odd place for syrup, I thought. I took it home and researched it online. It turned out it wasn't ordinary syrup. I typed in its description, the color, even took a photo and uploaded it to various forums. What I discovered chilled me to the bone. It matched accounts of a homemade mixture containing diaxin, a heart medication derived from foxglove plants. It's prescribed for heart conditions, but in high doses, it's lethal, particularly for someone like my dad, who was in his late 50s. It can trigger irregular heartbeats, potentially leading to a massive attack. And here's the concerning part. It's difficult to detect during an autopsy unless specifically looked for. Dad's death had been ruled natural. No suspicion of foul play. However, this bottle, when I sent a sample to a lab for anonymous testing, the residue tested positive. I started connecting the dots. Linda had been a nurse years ago. She possessed knowledge about medications. She'd been complaining about Dad's perceived laziness with chores, about how the property taxes were depleting their savings. She desired it all for herself. The unsettling mannerisms, the haste to sell, it all aligned. She must have been adding it to his food or coffee, gradually increasing the dosage until that fateful day. The physical exertion of mowing likely pushed his heart past its limit. I couldn't sleep after that discovery. Nightmares plagued me of my dad collapsing, Linda watching from a distance with that cold, calculating expression. I contacted the police initially anonymously, providing the details I had. They reopened the case, tested the bottle, and ordered an exhumation for toxicology. Traces of dioxin were found. Linda denied everything, but they discovered foxglove plants in her garden, hidden at the back. Emails on her computer discussed natural heart remedies and inheritance laws. They arrested her a week later. She screamed her innocence, but the evidence mounted. The trial proceeded swiftly. She received a life sentence for murder. The wailing at the house that day, my grandmother's, was genuine, but Linda's tears later were entirely feigned. She had murdered my father for his money. Story 2, all my 16th birthday as if it were yesterday, even though it's been several years now. My name is Smith, and I reside in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. My older brother, Alan, who was 22 at the time, always had a fondness for pulling pranks. He claimed he wanted to make my birthday unforgettable. So, he arranged the entire party at our house. Our parents were out of town for the weekend, visiting relatives in Ohio. Thus, it was just me, Alan, and approximately a dozen friends from school. The party commenced around 7 p.m. on a Friday evening. Alan had decorated the living room with balloons and streamers, and he had ordered pizzas from Domino's and a cake from the local Walmart bakery. My friends arrived one by one, guys like Ben, Tyler, and Chris, and a few girls, including Sophia and Emily. We were engaged in playing video games on the Xbox, music blasting from a Spotify connection on the Bluetooth speaker, simply hanging out and relaxing. Alan was acting quite mysteriously, grinning each time he looked in my direction. About an hour into the gathering, he pulled me aside in the kitchen and stated, "Hey, bro, I've arranged a surprise prank. I hired some performers from a local theater group to stage a fake home invasion. They'll burst in wearing masks and toy guns, scare everyone momentarily, then reveal it's all a ruse. Don't blow it. Act scared initially." I laughed and rolled my eyes. Alan was perpetually doing things like this. The previous year, he had hidden in my closet dressed as a clown to startle me. I assumed it would be harmless amusement, so I went along with it. "All right, man," I said. "Just don't make it excessively wild." We returned to the party, and everything seemed normal. People were snapping selfies on their iPhones, sharing on Snapchat, and munching on chips from Costco bags. Around 9 p.m., that's when the events unfolded. The lights flickered. Alan must have programmed that, using our Philips Hue smart bulbs. Then, the back door slammed open. 4 individuals in black ski masks rushed inside, shouting, "Everyone on the ground. This is a robbery." They were wielding what appeared to be fake pistols, the kind with orange tips you find on Amazon, and one brandished a knife that seemed to be plastic. My friend let out a scream and threw herself onto the floor. Sophia began crying, and Ben shouted, "What the hell is this?" I pretended to be startled, but inwardly, I was chuckling. I even whispered to Tyler next to me, "Dude, this is Alan's prank. Relax." The intruders started herding us towards the living room, binding our hands with those inexpensive plastic ties from Home Depot. Alan was bound as well, winking at me when no one was looking. One of the individuals, let's refer to him as Mask 1. He was tall and slender. He demanded wallets and phones. "Hand over your belongings or else," he commanded in a feigned tough voice. People were panicking, but I kept insisting, "Guys, this is likely just a joke. Alan loves this kind of thing." Emily shot me a disapproving look. "Smith, shut up. This isn't amusing." It was at that point that I began noticing subtle details that felt amiss. The scenario Alan had outlined was straightforward: intimidate us, take fake loot, then remove their masks and laugh it off. However, one of the intruders, a shorter, stockier individual known as Mask 4, wasn't following the others' lead. He was quieter, moving along the periphery of the room, searching through drawers in the kitchen while the others were shouting. I saw him pocket my mother's jewelry box from the counter, the one containing her genuine gold earrings from Macy's. I thought, that's not part of the prank, but I dismissed the thought. Perhaps Alan had added extra elements. The true horror set in when Mask 4 returned. He was holding a knife, but upon closer inspection, it didn't resemble the plastic ones the others had. This one featured a serrated edge, like a genuine kitchen knife from our IKEA set. It lacked the shiny, fake appearance. It was dull steel. He leaned down near Sophia, who was sobbing on the carpet, and pressed the blade against her arm. "Give me your necklace," he growled, his voice low and raspy, lacking the theatrical quality of the others. Sophia fumbled it off, a cheap silver chain from Target, but her arm received a slight cut. A thin line of blood appeared. "Ow," she cried out. My heart began pounding. "Wait, that's real blood," I whispered aloud. I looked at Alan, who was across the room, his eyes now wide with genuine shock. He mouthed, "What?" I attempted to whisper, shout, "Alan, it's not fake. The knife is real." But one of the actors, also masked, shouted over me, "Be quiet, kid," adhering to the script. My friends believed I was still joking. Chris even laughed nervously. "Smith, stop messing around. This is scary enough." The chaos escalated from there. The intruders were supposed to conclude the prank soon, but Masked 4 continued to escalate the situation. He smashed a vase from our mantel, real ceramic, not a prop, and started gathering phones into a black duffel bag, the kind purchased at Dick's Sporting Goods. "No calls to the cops," he stated. But his tone was deadly serious, not playful. I recalled Alan mentioning the actors would pretend to cut the phone lines, but this individual was actually pulling the landline cord from the wall and stomping on it with his boots. I believe they were Timberlands. I struggled against my zip ties, which felt tighter than they should have been. "Guys, listen," I whispered urgently to Ben and Tyler. "Look at his knife. It's from our kitchen." Ben glanced over and frowned. "Dude, you're being paranoid. Alan planned this." But then Masked 4 grabbed Emily's purse, rummaging through it forcefully, and when she protested, he shoved her violently against the couch. She struck her head on the armrest, and a bruise started to form. That was unmistakably not acting. Alan finally realized what was happening. He began shouting, "All right, guys, the prank's over. Stop this." The three actors hesitated, looking confused beneath their masks. Mask 1 removed his mask. It was a college student named Ryan, someone Alan knew from his job at "Wait, what's going on?" Ryan asked, sounding bewildered. "We're following the plan," he said. However, Mask 4 didn't cease his actions. He dashed towards the front door with the duffel bag containing phones, wallets, and jewelry. "Forget this," he muttered, his voice muffled. Panic erupted. Alan yelled, "That's not one of ours." The actors quickly untied us, fumbling with scissors from a drawer. We all gave chase, but he was swift. He leaped the fence in the backyard, our chain-link fence from Lowe's, and vanished into the night. The wailing of sirens could be heard in the distance. Presumably, someone had called 911 from a neighbor's house. The police arrived roughly 10 minutes later, 2 squad cars from the local precinct. They collected statements, but the situation was a mess. My friends were deeply traumatized. Sophia required stitches for her arm, and Emily had suffered a concussion. The actors admitted everything, showing emails from Alan hiring them via Craigslist for $200 each. Alan faced severe consequences: community service and a fine for wasting police resources. However, the actual criminal escaped cleanly. The officer informed us he likely observed the actors arriving earlier, blended in using a similar mask he had acquired, and utilized the prank as cover. Our neighborhood had been experiencing a string of burglaries that summer, targeting houses in suburbs similar to ours. They never apprehended him. Our phones were gone, iPhones, Samsungs, all containing our photos and contacts. Insurance covered some losses, but the sense of violation lingered. I still double-check locks at night and keep birthdays low-key now. Alan apologizes every year, but that night continues to haunt me. What if I had spoken up sooner? What if that knife had inflicted deeper wounds? It's truly frightening how rapidly a foolish prank can transform into genuine horror in the blink of an eye. Story 3 *. It was my 21st birthday, and I was thrilled. I had been planning this party for weeks. One rented a spacious Airbnb house in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. It was one of those older homes with a vast backyard, perfect for a barbecue. I invited around 30 friends from college and high school, along with some family members. My younger brother, Jake, who was only 14, tagged along because my parents wanted him to keep an eye on things. He mostly stayed in the living room, glued to his Nintendo Switch, playing. The party started around 7 p.m. on a warm Friday in June. We had a playlist playing loudly from my Bluetooth speaker, featuring artists like Drake and Post Malone. The grill was sizzling with burgers from Walmart, and everyone was laughing, snapping selfies on their iPhones. It felt like the kind of night you wouldn't soon forget. Around 9 p.m., a man arrived at the door. He was in his late 30s, possibly early 40s, with short brown hair, wearing a plain black hoodie and jeans. He had a backpack slung over one shoulder. I didn't recognize him, but at parties like this, it's common for people to bring guests. He smiled and said, "Hey, happy birthday. I'm a friend of Mike's." Mike was a college friend who had invited a few others, so I assumed he was welcome. I let him in and pointed towards the snack table. "Help yourself to chips or whatever," I instructed. He nodded and blended into the crowd. Initially, I paid him little attention. I was busy socializing with friends and playing cornhole in the backyard. However, as the evening progressed, I began to notice peculiar things. This man, I'll refer to him as the stranger, since I never learned his name, wasn't really interacting with anyone. He would stand near groups, listening intently, but never joining in. A couple of times, I caught him taking small plastic bags from his pocket, the kind you find at CVS, and fiddling with them when he thought no one was looking. My friend Nichols pulled me aside around 10:30. "That guy in the hoodie gives me the creeps," she whispered urgently. "He keeps staring at people, and I'm positive I saw him drop something into a cup on the table." My stomach twisted into knots. I hadn't witnessed that myself, but Nichols isn't the type to invent things. I decided I needed to observe him more carefully. I began watching the stranger more intently. He was lingering near the kitchen, where several red Solo cups were lined up. I saw him lean over one cup, his hand moving swiftly as if dropping something inside. My heart rate accelerated. Was he attempting to drug someone? I instructed Nichols to stay close to our friends and went to check on Jake. He was still in the living room, headphones on, completely oblivious to the I returned to the kitchen and confronted the man. "Hey man, what's your angle?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He offered a false smile and replied, "Just enjoying the party, birthday boy." His voice was overly smooth, suggesting he was hiding something. I didn't know him and asked him to leave. He shrugged, grabbed his backpack, and exited through the front door. I believed that was the end of the matter. Around midnight, as people started to depart, I was tidying up when my mom called, sounding frantic. "Where's Jake?" she demanded. My heart stopped. I ran to the living room. His switch was on the couch, but he was gone. I searched the house, the backyard, everywhere. No Jake. My friends joined in the search, but he wasn't anywhere to be found. Nichols mentioned she had seen him speaking to someone near the front door earlier, although she hadn't thought much of it at the time. Panic overwhelmed me. I dialed 911. The police arrived quickly. I provided them with all the details, including my description of the stranger: black hoodie, jeans, backpack. They inquired if anyone else had seen him, and several friends confirmed they had. One of my cousins stated she saw the man talking to Jake outside, claiming he had a cool game to show him. My knees buckled. Had this man abducted my brother? The police issued an alert and began searching the vicinity. They advised us to remain at the house in case Jake returned. Hours passed, and I was losing hope, imagining the worst scenarios. Around 4 a.m., my phone rang. It was the police. They had located the stranger hiding in an abandoned building approximately a mile away, an old warehouse off Peachtree Road that kids were known to sneak into. He was in possession of Jake's phone and some of those plastic bags containing white powder. The police indicated the substance appeared to be drugs, possibly something intended to render people unconscious. They apprehended him on the spot. Jake was found wandering near the warehouse, scared but unharmed. He explained that the man had offered to show him a new game on his phone, lured him outside, and tried to persuade him to go somewhere interesting. Jake had become frightened and fled, but the man had taken his phone. The police are still investigating the stranger's intentions, but they suspect he was targeting children at parties, perhaps to rob them or worse. I cannot shake the guilt. It was my party, my house, and I permitted that man inside. Jake is all right, but he is shaken, and so am I. I constantly think about those plastic bags. What might have happened if Nichols hadn't noticed, or if Jake hadn't escaped? My 21st birthday was supposed to be fantastic, but it's a night I'll never forget for all the wrong reasons. Asterisk.